Land of the Lost wasn't colorful cartoon comfort. It was survival horror wrapped in foam rocks and rubber suits. A show that aired on Saturday mornings when parents assumed nothing dangerous could slip through the screen. But behind the dinosaurs, the glowing crystals and the catchy theme song, something darker lived. Children didn't just watch this show, they endured it. Actors collapsed inside costumes. Writers smuggled philosophy into scripts meant for kids, and fear hid in plain sight, hissing from the shadows. These are 20 strange, unsettling, and unforgettable facts about Land of the Lost, the children's show that dared to scare its audience. Fact number 20. The Sleestaks looked slow because the actors were fighting to stay conscious. The Sleestaks terrified generations of children with their slow, stalking movements and hollow hissing. On screen, it looked deliberate, like a predator conserving energy before striking. Behind the scenes, it was something far more alarming. The Sleestaks suits were built from thick rubber and foam, trapping heat like an oven under intense studio lights. Once the actors were zipped inside, air barely circulated. Sweat pooled almost instantly. Sid and Marty Krofft hired UCLA basketball players to fill the towering costumes, assuming elite athletes could handle the physical strain. They were wrong. Even the strongest performers could only last minutes at a time before dizziness set in. Crew members stood by specifically to pull actors out before they collapsed. Many did. Some fainted directly inside the suits, soaking the interiors with sweat. The monsters weren't acting exhausted. They were surviving. Every slow step, every pause, every eerie shuffle came from bodies overheating and lungs gasping for air. The Sleestaks didn't just look trapped in a nightmare world, they were trapped inside their own costumes. Fact number 19. This was supposed to be a kids' show. Until the tone took a dark turn before Land of the Lost, the Krofft brothers were known for psychedelic, silly children's TV. Shows filled with bright colors, talking puppets, and safe absurdity. Parents trusted them as harmless background noise. Then 1974 happened, and everything changed. Instead of jokes and slapstick, Land of the Lost dropped viewers into a prehistoric world where survival wasn't guaranteed. The Marshall family didn't laugh their way out of trouble. They scavenged for food, they ran from predators, they hid in caves while Sleestaks hissed in the darkness. Episodes didn't always end with resolution. Sometimes they ended with unanswered questions and dread that lingered all week. The visual tone changed too. Shadows dominated the sets. Fog crept through caves. Silence stretched uncomfortably long. Kids expecting comfort found tension instead. Parents assumed it was another silly adventure. Children knew better. This wasn't escapism. It was unease disguised as entertainment, and it rewired what Saturday morning television could be. Fact number 18. The entire show was built from a scrapbook of sci-fi nightmares. Land of the Lost didn't begin with a polished pitch or a clear mythology. It began with a scrapbook. Producer Alan Foshko and Sid Krofft clipped bizarre images from old pulp science fiction paperbacks. Waterfalls that looked like portals, glowing crystals, reptilian humanoids, dinosaurs lurking behind rocks. There was no logic, just vibes. They handed the chaotic collage to writer David Gerrold with a simple instruction: connect it all. Gerrold stared at the madness and started weaving. A waterfall became a time vortex. Crystals became ancient technology. Sleestaks became the decayed remnants of a lost civilization. Instead of dumbing it down, the writers leaned in. They rejected familiar tropes like Tarzan to avoid cliches and copyright fights. What emerged wasn't random. It was cohesive, strange, and unsettling. Kids thought they were watching adventure. In reality, they were watching a pulp nightmare stitched together with surprising intelligence. Fact number 17. Real sci-fi legends hit hard science in a children's show. Most Saturday morning TV ignored logic entirely. Land of the Lost did the opposite. The writer's room quietly recruited science fiction heavyweights like Larry Niven and Theodore Sturgeon. These weren't kids' TV writers. They were architects of speculative fiction. They slipped wormholes, paradoxes, time loops, and alternate timelines into scripts disguised as dinosaur chases. One week explored the danger of changing history. Another tackled predestination. Children absorbed complex ideas without realizing it. Parents thought kids were watching monsters. In truth, they were getting their first exposure to philosophical science fiction, ideas that would later shape generations of writers, gamers, and filmmakers. Land of the Lost wasn't just scary, it was intellectually dangerous in the best possible way. Fact number 16, Harlan Ellison almost broke the show and walked away. David Gerrold wanted the best, so he approached Harlan Ellison. Brilliant, volatile, and infamous. Ellison agreed to contribute and delivered a stunning outline involving underground technology and the true nature of the land. Then came the ending, or rather, the lack of one. Ellison submitted a script that ended with a single line. "I tie everything up neatly in the third act. Trust me, no dialogue, no resolution." Gerrold refused to gamble production on Ellison's confidence. The episode was scrapped. Fans never saw what might have been the most mind-bending installment of the series. Somewhere, in an alternate timeline, that ending still exists, lost like the land itself. Fact number 15. The monster design came straight from classic Hollywood horror. To save money, the Crofts hired veteran monster makers who once worked on Universal horror films. The same hands that built mummies, gillmen, and creatures of the 1940s now shape Sleestaks for children's TV. That legacy showed. The glowing eyes, the damp caves, the slow menace. This wasn't cartoon fear. It was old-school horror repurposed. Kids didn't know why the Sleestaks scared them so deeply. Their bodies recognized the language of classic monsters. The Universal era never died. It just learned to hiss on Saturday mornings. Fact number 14. The entire Lost World fit inside a warehouse. The jungles, cliffs, and skies of Land of the Lost looked endless. In reality, they were cramped sound stages filled with styrofoam, plastic vines, and painted backdrops. Camera angles did the work. Lighting sold the illusion. Modern eyes can spot reused rocks and repeated paths. Kids in the 70s didn't care. Imagination filled the gaps. The fakery became part of the magic. Proof that fear doesn't need realism, it needs atmosphere. Fact number 13. One of the Sleestaks grew up to become an NBA legend. Because of the height requirement, producers hired basketball players. One of them was an 18-year-old named Bill Laimbeer. Long before NBA championships and elbows, he was sweating inside a rubber monster suit. Years later, fans were stunned to learn one of television's creepiest creatures would grow up to dominate professional basketball. Before the Pistons, before the bad boy era, Laimbeer hissed through foam caves. Fact number 12. Grumpy. The T-Rex was overworked but beloved Grumpy. The T-Rex appeared constantly because the show needed a reliable threat. His roars were reused, his chases recycled, yet kids never got tired of him. Built with stop-motion animation and miniature sets, Grumpy became a co-star. He wasn't just danger. He was routine, a monster kids expected, feared, and loved. Fact number 11. Chaka was played by a real-life karate prodigy. Chaka wasn't played by a little person or special effects trick. He was played by Philip Paley, a 10-year-old karate prodigy and the youngest black belt in the world. His discipline let him survive the heat, weight, and exhaustion of the costume. Before Land of the Lost, Paley flipped Johnny Carson live on television. The Crofts saw it and knew they'd found their cave kid. Beneath the fur was pure skill. Fact number 10. The puny language was a real, working language. Chaka's strange grunts and sounds weren't random gibberish. Sid and Marty Krofft wanted the Pacu people to feel authentic, not cartoonish. So they hired a real linguist from UCLA. Instead of inventing nonsense, she created a fully structured language called Puni, complete with grammar rules, sentence order, and more than 200 vocabulary words. The sounds were inspired by African languages, chosen specifically because they felt ancient and unfamiliar to American ears. Chaka wasn't just making noise, he was speaking. Kids didn't realize it at the time, but they were hearing a constructed language years before Klingon or Dothraki became pop culture staples. Some children memorized the words, others repeated them on playgrounds without knowing what they meant. For many viewers, Land of the Lost became their first exposure to the idea that languages could be built, studied, and learned. It was education hidden inside fur, caves, and fear and most parents never noticed it happening. Fact number 9. The creators started in adult burlesque, not children's TV. Before Dinosaurs and Sleestaks, the Croft brothers were famous for something far less family-friendly. Their early success came from a live stage show called Les Poupées de Paris, a burlesque puppet act featuring topless marionettes, adult satire, and sexual humor. The show toured internationally, shocked audiences at the New York World's Fair, and even landed the Crofts on primetime television. Time magazine described it as scandalous. Parents clutched pearls, adults packed theaters. That notoriety opened doors with NBC, which eventually pushed the brothers toward children's programming. The irony is impossible to ignore. The men who would later traumatize kids with Sleestaks first built their careers making puppets strip on stage. That strange DNA carried over. Land of the Lost may have aired on Saturday mornings, but its roots were never truly innocent. There was always something off, something uncomfortable, because the minds behind it had never been interested in safe. Fact number 8. The theme song burned itself into a generation. The Land of the Lost theme song didn't need flash. It needed repetition. Simple lyrics, simple melody. Marshall, Will, and Holly burned into memory before kids even understood the plot. Every week began the same way. A raft, a waterfall, and a banjo-driven warning that this family was going somewhere they couldn't escape. The song felt almost cheerful, which made the danger that followed even more unsettling. Decades later, adults who haven't seen the show in years can still hum it perfectly. The tune became a trigger, a shortcut back to childhood fear and fascination. The dinosaurs faded. The sets aged badly. The song survived untouched. That's not nostalgia. That's conditioning. Fact number 7. The show outperformed cartoons and shocked NBC. When Land of the Lost premiered, executives didn't expect much. It was live action, low budget, and darker than anything else in the lineup. But kids tuned in and kept coming back. Against animated giants, Land of the Lost climbed ratings charts and became one of NBC's most successful Saturday morning shows. Children were drawn to the danger, the uncertainty, the fact that characters could fail. It proved something networks didn't want to admit. Kids didn't always want sugar. Sometimes they wanted fear. Fact number 6. The show smuggled dark philosophy into children's TV. The Sleestaks weren't just monsters. They were a warning. In the show's mythology, they were the degenerated remains of a once advanced civilization, a species destroyed by its own technology and moral decay. Episodes quietly explored fascism, genocide, destiny, and extinction. Wrapped in foam rocks and dinosaur chases, children absorbed ideas most adults avoided. Land of the Lost wasn't just scary, it was bleak and honest. Fact number 5. The father vanished without warning. Rick Marshall was the emotional anchor of the show, until actor Spencer Milligan walked away after disputes over pay and merchandising rights. Instead of recasting him, the producers erased him. Season 3 opened with a chilling explanation. Rick was gone. No goodbye, no closure. Replaced by a mysterious uncle who had supposedly been lost in the land all along. For kids, it was jarring. Adults vanished in this world. Just like that, the Land of the Lost lived up to its name. Fact number 4. The cast became a real family off-screen. Despite the chaos, the cast bonded deeply. Decades later, they still appear together at conventions, laughing like siblings. Fans describe reunions as emotional, less like celebrity panels, more like family gatherings. Proof that even strange, frightening worlds can forge real connections. Fact number 3. The show inspired future sci-fi legends. Creators of shows like Community, Rick and Morty, and countless games have cited Land of the Lost as inspiration. Time loops, lost civilizations, paradox-heavy storytelling. What looked like camp became a blueprint. Fact number 2. The 1990s reboot failed because it lost the fear. When NBC rebooted the series decades later, it polished everything. Brighter colors, safer tone. Sleestaks became jokes. Kids weren't scared. Ratings collapsed. The magic was gone. Some things can't be remade, only remembered. Fact number 1. The big-budget movie became a public apology. The 2009 Will Ferrell film was meant to revive the franchise. Instead, it became a cautionary tale. Critics hated it. Fans rejected it. Even the creators apologized publicly. The Land of the Lost rejected parody. It demanded respect. Why Land of the Lost still haunts us. Land of the Lost was never polished, Never safe, never perfect. Its dinosaurs were clumsy, its caves were foam, its monsters nearly collapsed from heat, and yet it became unforgettable. Because fear sticks, mystery lasts. And the shows that scare us as children are the ones we carry forever. If Land of the Lost ever made you hide behind the couch, drop a comment and tell us what cult classic we should explore next. Some worlds don't fade. They wait for us in the dark.